I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture the scene. It's the mid-1950s. You are standing in the lobby of the Hotel National in Havana.
Oh, yeah. The air is thick with cigar smoke.
Exactly. Thick with cigar smoke, expensive perfume, and the sweet scent of aged rum. The energy in the room is just electric. You look to your left, you see Hollywood royalty, Frank Sinatra, Ava Gardner.
And on your right, probably some very sharp suits, American mobsters.
That's it. It was the playground of the Caribbean, a gambling mecca that, frankly, gave Las Vegas a run for its money at the time. It was glamorous, it was dangerous, and business was booming.
It really was a different world, an era of total excess, the definition of a high roller's paradise, completely unchecked.
Exactly. Now, snap your fingers. Fast forward to today. You walk into that same hotel. The architecture, it's still there, majestic, maybe a little weathered, but the casinos,
Gone.
gone. The slot machines, vanished. That entire industry hasn't just declined, it has been hermetically sealed off, frozen in amber for over 60 years.
It's one of the most dramatic shifts in gaming history. I mean, we are looking at a market that went from being the absolute epicenter of Caribbean gaming to a complete regulatory black hole.
And that is exactly where we are going today. We are the Gambling Databases Research Team, a group dedicated to delivering in-depth analyses of the global iGaming landscape. In each country-specific report, we explore key aspects such as local regulations, taxation, player experience, operator conditions, and emerging trends.
Our goal is to provide a clear, data-driven understanding of how the gambling industry functions within each market and what makes it unique.
And today's analysis is a fascinating challenge because we're exploring one of the most restrictive gambling environments on Earth.
Right. So our mission for this discussion is to answer a really difficult question. In a country where gambling is strictly a criminal offense, how does an informal market still survive? And more importantly, is there any future for legal operators here?
We are working from our primary source, the Cuba iGaming Market Analysis. It's a massive report covering legal frameworks, demographics, and the very stark reality of the market scores. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
We have to start with the history, because usually when we talk about bans, it's a gradual thing. You know, maybe they ban online poker but keep the lottery. This wasn't gradual, was it?
No, not at all. This was abrupt. The root of this entire situation is the Cuban Revolution in 1959. When Fidel Castro took power, the new government didn't just see gambling as a nuisance or, a potential tax revenue stream. They took a very hardline ideological stance,
They saw it as a symbol of something else.
a symbol of capitalist excess.
It wasn't just about the games themselves, though, right? It wasn't just cards and dice. It was about who owned the games.
That's the key context. The casinos were symbols of foreign exploitation, specifically the American mob connections, Meyer Lansky and that whole crew, and the corruption of the Batista regime. So the crackdown wasn't just regulatory, it was political cleansing.
They wanted to scrub that influence out of the culture.
And that ideology turned into law incredibly fast. The report highlights Ley 86.
That sounds ominous.
It was definitive. Ley 86 was enacted in 1959, and it put a complete prohibition on all forms of gaming. And when we say all forms, we mean everything.
Everything. Land-based casinos, sports betting, lotteries.
All of it.
Yeah.
And eventually, as technology evolved, that ban just extended by default to online gaming.
So practically overnight, in October 1960, the order comes down. Every casino shuts its doors. The dealers go home. The machines are, smashed or thrown out.
Correct. And that legal framework, or rather the total absence of one, persists today. In most countries we analyze, we talk about the regulatory body or the gaming commission.
Right. We analyze their efficiency, their tax rates.
In Cuba, there is no regulatory body. There's no gaming commission. There is no licensing process to even apply for.
I want to pause on that because we often talk about gray markets. And usually a gray market means the laws are outdated or they don't specifically mention the internet, so operators function in a loophole. You're saying Cuba isn't gray.
No, Cuba is a black market. That is a crucial distinction. A gray market implies ambiguity. There's no ambiguity here.
So what does that mean in practice?
It means operating a gambling business is a criminal offense. It is punishable by imprisonment and asset seizure. The enforcement isn't handled by civil regulators checking your paperwork. It's handled by general law enforcement and state security.
So if you get caught running a poker site, or even a physical card room, you aren't getting a fine. You're getting handcuffs.
Exactly. And that creates a terrifying environment for the player, too, because the industry effectively doesn't exist in the eyes of the law, there is zero consumer protection.
Right. No dispute resolution if a site steals your money.
None. No technical certification to ensure the games are fair. No age verification requirements. You are completely on your own in the Wild West.
So we have a total ban. High risk of prison, no protection for your money. Logic dictates that gambling should be extinct in Cuba.
It should be.
And yet,
Yeah.
the report says otherwise. People are still gambling.
They are, and this is the aha moment of the report. You cannot legislate away cultural appetite. The casino is closed, but the desire to play didn't disappear. It just went dark.
The report dives into something called La Bolita. Tell us about that, because this seems to be the bridge between the old days and the digital age.
La Bolita is fascinating. It's an informal numbers game, basically a lottery, that has persisted for decades underground. It originates from the olden days when they used to throw numbered balls.
Okay.
Now it is run out of private homes, hidden venues, and it operates entirely on trust within local networks. You have runners who collect bets and pay out winners.
So it's a decentralized analog gambling network.
Yeah.
Almost like a social institution.
Deeply ingrained. People have been playing the numbers for generations, regardless of what the law says. And what we're seeing now is that cultural habit migrating. It's moving from private homes and handwritten notes to the digital realm.
Despite the ban, Cuban residents are accessing offshore iGaming sites.
Yes, they are finding their way to platforms hosted in jurisdictions like Curacao, Malta, or Gibraltar.
But how? If I'm in Havana and I type in the URL for a major European sportsbook, it's not going to load, is it?
It almost certainly won't. And this is where the tech gets interesting. It's not just that the Cuban government blocks these sites, though they do try to control the internet. It's that the major software providers.
The companies that actually build the games.
Exactly. The companies that build the slots and the table games, they block Cuba automatically.
Wait, why would the foreign companies do the censoring? You'd think they would want the customers.
It comes down to liability, specifically avoiding U.S. sanctions. Major tech companies do not want to get flagged by the U.S. government for doing business in Cuba, so they geo-block the entire island.
So if your IP address says Cuba, the game just won't load.
Simple as that. The player is getting blocked from both sides, the Cuban government doesn't want them out, and the foreign companies don't want them in.
So players have to get creative.
Precisely. They have to use tech workarounds.
Yeah.
We are seeing heavy use of VPNs, virtual private networks.
And for anyone listening who isn't technical, that's essentially tunneling your internet connection to look like it's coming from somewhere else, right?
Right. You are sitting in Havana, but you tell the internet you are in Mexico or Spain. It's a game of cat and mouse, and it requires a certain level of digital literacy.
Which brings us to the demographics, because usually when we talk about emerging markets, we assume a very young population. But Cuba is different.
It is. Cuba has an incredibly literate population, over 99% literacy. But the population is aging. The median age is around 43, which is quite high for the region.
But mobile internet penetration is growing fast.
It is. We're looking at about 65% to 70% of the population with smartphones.
That's a significant number. So even though the youth cohort is smaller than, say, Brazil or Mexico, they're the ones driving this. They're the ones figuring out the VPNs.
Correct. But here's the thing. Finding the site is only half the battle. In fact, it's the easy part. The real challenge, the massive, nearly impossible hurdle in Cuba is money.
How do you actually get funds onto the site?
Exactly.
Like, we need to talk about the financial blockade. Because if I'm in Cuba, I can't just pull out a Visa or a MasterCard and deposit $50.
Oh, absolutely not. Between U.S. sanctions and local banking controls, international credit cards are essentially useless for gambling transactions. The transaction will be flagged and blocked instantly.
So for a long time, that was a dead end, if you can't pay.
You can't play. Simple as that.
But then, the report highlights a major shift in 2022.
Yes, this was a pivotal moment. The Central Bank of Cuba legalized the use of cryptocurrency for payments. Now, let's be clear. This was not a gambling reform.
They weren't trying to help casinos.
No. They did it because the country is sanctioned and needs a way to move money internationally. But by legalizing crypto, they inadvertently created a payment rail for the offshore market.
An unintended consequence.
Exactly. Crypto became the only reliable way to bypass the banking blockade. If you have Bitcoin or Ethereum, you can deposit on an offshore site without touching the Cuban banking system and without triggering U.S. sanctions. It unlocked the door.
That sounds like a huge opportunity, doesn't it? You've got a population that likes to gamble, high literacy, high smartphone usage, and now a payment method that works.
On paper, yes, it looks like a gold rush. But we have to look at the economic reality. And this is where we throw a bucket of cold water on the excitement.
How cold are we talking?
Freezing. The economic situation is incredibly difficult. The average monthly wage is approximately $148 US.
$148 a month. That puts things in perspective immediately. If you're playing slots at $1 a spin, that's your month's rent in 5 minutes.
It is completely unsustainable. And on top of that, inflation was over 41% in 2023. The economy is dominated by the public sector, about 70% of the GDP. So disposable income, it's negligible for the mass market.
So even if they can access the sites via VPN, and even if they can pay via crypto, most people simply don't have the money to lose.
Precisely. You might have a very small segment of the population, maybe those receiving money from family abroad who have some funds. But as a mass market, the lifetime value of a player is going to be extremely low.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not just about access, it's about affordability. And speaking of access, let's talk about the physical infrastructure. What's the internet situation actually like on the ground?
It's improving, but it's still a struggle. 4G coverage exists, covering about 52% of the population, but the speeds are slow.
How slow?
We're talking about an average of 10 megabits per second on mobile and maybe 20 on broadband.
10 megabits. So if you're trying to load a 4K live dealer stream from a studio in Europe,
It's going to buffer constantly. It's going to look like a slideshow. It creates a terrible user experience. Plus, the devices. This is an Android-dominated market. Apple products are very rare outside of wealthy circles or tourists.
so if you're an operator, even a black market one,
Yeah,
you can't be pushing these heavy data-intensive apps.
exactly. The market prefers lightweight sites, simple, low-data mobile interfaces. If your platform is heavy, you lose the player before the game even loads.
Okay, so let's recap the hurdles. A total legal ban with criminal penalties.
Yeah.
A financial blockade that requires crypto knowledge. A population earning $150 a month with 40% inflation. And slow internet.
That is the landscape.
I think I know where this is going, but let's get to the official verdict. The report assigns a score to every country. What is the number for Cuba?
The gambling database's country rating for Cuba is stark. The operator ease score is a flat 0.0 out of 10.
0.0. I don't think we've ever seen a 0 on this show. That is the lowest possible score.
It is. You cannot get lower. And the player access score isn't much better at 1.3 out of 10. Overall market attractiveness, 0.6 out of 10.
Those numbers are brutal. And the report lists some critical risks. Let's run through them for any industry professionals listening.
First and foremost, total legal prohibition. No ambiguity. Second, there is zero possibility for a foreign operator to apply for legal status. You can't just go to the government and ask for a license.
It doesn't exist.
And the political risk is huge. The government doesn't just see this as a business violation. They see it as a threat to public morality.
It's an ideological issue.
Correct, which makes it much harder to change. And this all brings us to the section of the report titled, Who Should Enter?
And the answer was pretty blunt, wasn't it?
The answer is no one.
No one.
No one. If you are a legitimate, compliant business, you stay away. Specifically, publicly listed companies need to avoid this entirely.
Let me clarify why. If I'm a big European gambling company listed on the London Stock Exchange, why do I care about Cuban law?
It's not just Cuban law. It's international compliance, specifically OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control in the U.S. If a public company is found to be generating revenue from a sanctioned jurisdiction like Cuba, the consequences are catastrophic.
We're talking massive fines, delisting from stock exchanges.
And legal action. It is toxic.
And sportsbooks?
Same deal. Illegal. And anyone dependent on credit card processing, which is most of the industry, literally cannot function there. The payments will fail.
So if you're a legitimate operator looking at a map of the Caribbean, you just put a big red X over Cuba.
You have to. The conclusion on profitability is that for a legitimate operator, it is non-existent. The only entities operating there are doing so strictly on the black market. Small, unregulated offshore sites willing to accept massive risks for, honestly, very little financial return.
It really is a fascinating case study. We usually talk about markets opening up. This is a market that is fighting to stay closed.
It is a case study in how politics and economics collide to just strangle a market.
So, to summarize what we've unpacked today, Cuba is a market with a rich, glamorous gambling history that is currently frozen in time. It's sealed off by politics, strangled by economics, and accessible only through the riskiest underground channels like VPNs and crypto.
That's a fair summary, but it does leave us with a provocative thought to consider.
What's that?
Well, we have the 2022 legalization of cryptocurrency. We have a country that is in desperate need of economic diversification. Their economy is struggling. They need tourism revenue badly.
And they see their neighbors.
Exactly. They see neighboring countries like the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico making millions in tax revenue from regulated gaming. The pressure is building.
So the question is,
How long can the Cuban government afford to ignore that potential revenue? Will ideology always trump economics, or will the financial pressure eventually force a crack in the armor?
that is the billion-dollar question. It's a waiting game, and right now the door is shut tight. But in this industry, money usually finds a way.
Indeed, it does.
That brings us to the end of this analysis. For the full text of this and other country reports, visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.